Blended Podcasts. Brought to you by Blended Audio.
Hello and welcome to Centre Stage, the South African Film and Theatre podcast. I'm your host, Alistair, and with me as always
is your other host, Peter Bates, and we are joined by special guest, Lee van der Merwe.
Ooh.
Welcome, Lee. I just said, yeah, as I said it.
I didn't have to say my own name.
Let's just do that again. I'm
That's
sorry.
fine.
No, that was perfect.
Okay, great.
Continuing. Let's
Continue.
Go.
The show must go on. So, Lee,
Yeah.
we were joking about it, but I'm going to ask you, who are you?
No idea. Who knows? An artiste searching, finding my true inner being.
True being.
Okay. My name is Lee. My surname's van der Merwe. I can't speak a word of Afrikaans, hence the way that I pronounce it.
Merwe.
Yeah. Merwe. Cape Town gal. Grew up with my parents, and my brother in the same household since I was born. My parents still live there, just recently moved out. And yeah, I am a theatre maker. That's what I call myself these days. Theatre maker, yeah. The most general term I could find. It used to be performing artist, and then, and then people are like, what does that mean? And so, yeah, freelance performing artist, theatre maker, and everything in between.
So, okay, maybe that answers my question, but so why not call yourself an actor?
Oof, because there's so much more to Lee van der Merwe than just an actor. So I trained my whole life to be a ballet dancer. I did ballet since I was 3.5. And then I did some other dancing, like classical Greek and a little bit of contemporary, and I did a little bit of drama here and there. And then when I was 18, I finally got into a ballet company and realized that it wasn't for me. And then from there, I realized that all my other training and all the other type of dancing and stuff like that is what I really loved. So I still do ballet to this day, and I love ballet, and I do perform ballet every now and then, but it's more like my vehicle to do everything else that I do. So then I decided to go to a performing arts school where I did everything. So I did ballet, contemporary, every type of dance, hip-hop, tap, musical theatre, and then I did musical theatre singing, and I did theatre and drama as well. So that's how I've come to have my finger in as many pies as possible, because performing artists in Cape Town in South Africa have to do as many things as possible to stay constantly employed if you're a freelancer. Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much what I was trained to do. And then I landed up doing a Pilates course. I'm a Pilates teacher. I teach drama and contemporary dance and Pilates, and so I choreograph and I write, and yeah, so I'm just constantly creating, constantly teaching and performing, and bouncing from, say, a play to a dance piece to a musical theatre piece, and yeah, just stay as busy as possible.
We've talked about this before, where you have to kind of do everything,
exactly.
And you sound like you do everything.
Yeah, I think I'm actually a bit of the exception, where I genuinely love so many different aspects of performing arts. I think a lot of people say, look, I do a little bit of dancing and I do a bit of acting, but I'm really a singer. Or I'm really an actor, but I sing so that I can do some musical theatre or whatever.
Yeah.
But I genuinely love it all, which is very cool. And I'm very lucky that, when I'm in a musical, I'm loving every second of it. Or if I'm in a ballet, I'm also loving every second of it. Or I'm doing a jazz gig, I'm still loving the singing. And yeah, so I'm lucky in that way.
So you love everything you do, which is wonderful. But do you have a...
There's a lot of bad stuff that comes with it.
But is there like a favorite sort of, like, do you enjoy perhaps a ballet performance a little bit more than a straight play, or
I think with whatever job I'm doing at the time, I'm like, oh no, this is my direction, and this is where I should go, and this is what I really love. And I chop and change quite a lot within that. But I think that if I could absolutely choose what I wanted to do, then it would actually be physical theatre and contemporary dance, which is something that doesn't really exist so much in Cape Town at the moment, which is pretty much my struggle at the moment. I spent a lot of time in the UK, and there's a lot of physical theatre and collaboration between theatre and dance happening there and across Europe. But yeah, it's really hard for that to happen here, and it basically comes down to funding. But if I could choose, it would be to create a collaboration of contemporary dance and physical theatre and theatre, and I suppose call it physical theatre or just theatre, but that's what I would really love to do.
That's interesting because, I mean, I hear that a lot of things in South African industry and in the Cape Town industry comes down to funds. But coming from Rhodes, like there was such a huge push, like a huge focus on like physical theatre. And I know also in the UCT drama department, there's quite a focus on physical theatre. So it's just interesting to me to know that the actual, what you call market for physical theatre commercially isn't of the same level as what you would think going into these courses.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, if you think, like, what's your dream physical theatre company to be part of?
You're like, which ones are there?
There are very few. I'm not saying that they don't exist.
Yeah, they obviously exist.
I mean, you know, Magnet Theatre and there are, you know, First Physical Theatre Company. They do exist. And they've taken also very specific niche markets, I'd say. And, yeah, isn't accessible for every single artist. And so I'm not saying that they don't exist at all, but they are very limited in how many there are.
So,
yeah,
I want to know, when you get like a sort of play, or when someone talks to you about a play, like a straight play, is there sort of like character that you gravitate towards? Like, do you like playing the good girl, the bad guy? Because I personally like playing the evil guys. But
oh, really?
In real life, I'm like the nicest person.
I think as your career continues, you realize how you start getting typecasted without you kind of realizing, and when you look back on things that you've been cast in, with the way that I look and the way that I come across, I always am cast as the naive young type of character who lands up getting swept up in the story, and that kind of seems to be where I always get placed by other people who see me. Whereas if I could choose, I would always go for the opposite. So I would always go for the stronger leader kind of character. I mean, I was cast, I think I was cast as Anybody's in the last season of West Side Story, which was a complete flip of what I usually get cast as. And that, I absolutely loved it. She was the girl in the gang, well, not in the gang, she wanted to be in the gang. She wanted to be one of the boys, and she saved the day at the end of the day. She was one of the strongest characters in the whole story. And that was super duper fun. And yeah, that was one of my dream roles. So yeah, to not necessarily the bad guy. I don't actually ever really go towards that, but just that strong female character, which I suppose every actress at the moment is kind of wanting to do. Yeah.
But then, okay, so you're saying that you get typecasted, which obviously in the industry that happens.
Yeah.
I've been typecast as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have to.
Yeah.
According to the way you look.
Yeah, I mean, some people, like, especially for, like, adverts and stuff, they're looking for a specific type of look and stuff. So, I mean, it's understandable in my opinion. But if you're someone, like an actor, who's been only done a certain number of roles, whether they like it or not. Do you? So, taking your example, you were typecast in a lot of roles, and then you got this. Anybody's.
Yeah.
And then was that a difficult thing to sort of, as an actor, get your mind around now playing a more
Oh, not at
completely
all.
different character
She was a
to
lot
what you
closer
used
to
to.
what I am. So
So it was easier.
it was a lot easier. Yeah, it was a lot easier. I think every actor takes a different angle of how they approach a character, and I think that my approach is to look inward and find an aspect of myself in that character, and grow upon that and let that flourish and take over and be the start of the creation of this character, so that I have some kind of personal link to this character. And so far, not that I have done many plays, but so far I've always found a connection, because everybody is multifaceted. So everybody has many dimensions to their personality. So you can always find something, even if it's just a little niggle at the back of your head that you thought about once, you can take that and you can use it, and I suppose it depends on how dramatic. I mean, if you're playing a murderer, that's very difficult to find, or maybe not for some people. So I haven't really had that challenge where I've like, this character is so different to the ones that I've always been playing, and usually an actor will be like, oh yes, finally, I can have a new challenge, a different perspective. Yeah.
So do you, when you characterize, from like like Stanislavski sort of style, like internally?
Yeah, very much so.
Which is interesting, because you have a very strong physical theatre background.
Yes, yeah.
So because a lot of physical theatre actors, they go the Grotowski sort of method, and they they call it like, where Stanislavski is characterization from within,
inside.
Grotowski's more characterization from outside, your body
physical.
first.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
I think I do like a mixture between. It depends on the character. So like, I was cast in a play called The Third Force, and I was a completely physical character. Did you see it? I think you did. No. Sorry. And it was a completely I spoke very few lines, and if it did, it was Shakespeare. But this character was. This character was a symbol of an aspect of someone's mind that was recalling childhood memories. And so I would turn to a T-Rex, to a puppy, to a kid playing in the sand, and it was hyper physicalized. And in that way, Stanislavski internal
Falls out
stuff
the
would
window.
never work, never work. And I went purely physical, and I went purely, what does my body want to do? How do I express freedom within and I went completely the choreographer brain, then it's very different. It's a different like pathway to get to the character. And then that's actually interesting, because as a choreographer, many choreographers are not theatre trained. But when they are, you can see it a mile off, because they actually put the two together. They don't simply think what visually would look beautiful or what feels great on my body or would feel beautiful on their body, but have both the internal and the external. It's hard to explain, but like, if you're theatre trained, you would think about the internal monologue to create the choreography rather than just thinking about the physical choreography.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Yeah.
So you spoke earlier, you were in West Side Story. West Side Story.
Yeah. I also didn't do my vocal warm-up before we started.
West Side Story. I've also just recently seen you in Kinky Boots.
Yeah.
What is it like being in a musical? Because I can imagine it's a lot of work.
It is a huge amount of work. What's it like to be in a musical? Well, I've only been in 2 musicals. I've only been in West Side Story and Kinky Boots. Both of them were Fugard theatre productions. So that's the only reference that I have. And when I think about what those musical theatre productions have been in kind of like a nutshell, is like a ball of energy, like just passion and energy. And I think the Fugard will be like, oh yeah, she said that.
Good plug.
That's not there. Yeah, I didn't mean to be a plug there, but it really is. Everybody in musical theatre just has huge energy and huge passion, and it's just it's crazy and chaotic and manic in a good way, and it's a completely different world. It's just. It's a huge mechanism of loads of people, and everybody does their job so well and so meticulously to make this huge mechanism of this huge production come together. It's when you walk into a musical theatre space, it's very intimidating. It's very, very overwhelming. There's lots of big personalities. There's like a panel of creative people in the rehearsal space. You've got it's a lot. It's a lot. And it's something that if you are given the opportunity to get into just one musical in your career, take it, because you learn a huge amount from it.
I can imagine there's a lot more teamwork aspect than in
amount of teamwork.
In any play there's like a huge amount of teamwork.
Yeah.
But like with musical, you gotta trust like the choreographer. You gotta make sure everyone's singing together in unison,
it's
and then
crazy.
acting and have good rapport as well.
So Kinky Boots, one performance I think is counted 72 people. It takes 72 people to get that whole machine running. Yeah. And I think it was either 3 or maybe 5. I can't remember if it was 3 or 5, but before rehearsals started, I think it was 5. 5 years that the creative team was getting the whole thing together so that everything was in place by the time day 1 rehearsals. I mean, if you think about it, like Kinky Boots is a huge monster of a production. It's Broadway, it's West End. Fugard had to get the rights to perform it, but not only perform a carbon copy of it, but to do their own version of it. That's why we have our own director and our own choreographer, because we obviously got the rights for the score and the script, and everything else is ours. And obviously there are certain aspects of it that they said have to be there, which we did, but.
Sorry, I don't know if you even know, but like, because you're not obviously the director, but like, what sort of aspects would those sort of be that have to be there? Like, I can't imagine what would.
That I do not know.
No.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, there were many conversations and lots of work that went into. I think also like technical things of like the basic look of the show is, completely vastly different. Isn't completely vastly different to the original, and like the travelator, the conveyor belt thing that's all still there. That's from the original, and
I suppose they got to keep it like sort of uniform in a way.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's a completely different.
Yeah, and then it's not really
thing.
Kinky Boots anymore. Yeah. So yeah, just getting back to like how many people run the show. I mean, so that starting is 3 to 5 years of that planning. Okay, then it's millions in budget, and it's costume design that is like out of this world. It's sound design. It is set design, building the set. It's just so many people to put this all together, and then to have the show itself. The cast is only 21 or 22 of all of us all together, including swings, understudies, and then we have 2 mic technicians, we have a sound technician, we have the whole band, which is up on the 3rd floor.
Yes.
And we've got stage managers, assistant stage managers. We have a whole wardrobe team. We have quick dressers. We have multiple technicians. And and then obviously there's the whole front of house team. And it's an extremely technical show. I mean, it's not only what you see on the stage, which is those walls and so many props and multiple costumes and wig maintenance and all of that, but it is so much like kilometers of cabling and a highly sound technical show. And the mic and sound situation is vast.
Yeah, because I saw almost every character had a mic piece on them.
Every single person has a mic, yeah. Every person.
Which is a lot to keep track of.
Yeah. So we have something called Radioland, which is backstage where the 2 mic technicians are situated, and they keep track. They're surrounded by monitors, and they have it actually kind of looks like what do you call where like they store like computer places, and they have those towers and with the bleeping lights, and they're black.
Server?
Yeah.
Okay.
They look like servers, but it's got every person's name on and every single mic and battery levels and yeah, and then you plug in and out of each person's mic to make sure that it's still working. And then we have a backstage booth as well, where if you're not on stage, you are singing off stage. And then we've got monitors to see the musical director up on the 3rd floor, and monitors to hear certain aspects of what's happening on stage. And yeah, it's a very intricate, very detailed, incredible team that puts the show together.
So when you go audition for it, what do you? I've heard. I think we had Emma DeBona, and she said something about. There's like 3 auditions effectively, an acting one, a singing one, and a dancing one. So how long is that audition like slot? Like, do you have to set aside a whole day?
Do you mean like for Kinky Boots in general, or I mean specifically, or like musical theatre in general?
I think general, but
okay. In general, if you're going to be doing like one of the big musicals, so say last year we did the Chicago auditions. That was the entire day. So it depends. So say if it's an international production, then they have very, very limited time. They usually only have 1 day to cast the entire show. Maybe 1 day or 2 days, because they're probably going to be in Cape Town, but then they're going to be in Joburg, and then whatever. So they have very, very limited time, which means that your day is going to be super long. So not only do you have to do the multiple like facets of what musical theatre is, you also have to do various rounds. So then you have to do things again and again as well. So say for Chicago, it started out with a ballet call. That was the very first thing. Then you do things again and again, but also you get cut after a while. So same with Matilda, the first thing was singing. If you passed that and you weren't cut, then you would move on to the dancing. And then if you got through that and you weren't cut, then you would go on to scene work. And then if they liked you there and you weren't cut, then you would get into a callback, and then you would probably do everything again, and that may be the same day. So they may say, can you hang around for 2 hours, and at 2 o'clock we're going to do the callbacks. Then from 2 till say 4, 5 or 6, you're doing all of that all over again, maybe with new material, probably adding on material, or doing it again. But every audition is slightly different. The Fugard does things quite differently. So because they are Cape Town based and they usually work with Cape Town artists, they work with slots. So they're not going to have 50,000 people all on one day, which is so much nicer because you go into a rehearsal space and you're only auditioning with 5 or 6 other people instead of a cattle call. You know what I mean? And you can perform so much better because you know that you're in the room with them. You know that they can see you. So you can be more yourself, and you can, so anyway, so they give you slots. So they may, with that, it also takes a long time to cast. So there's pros and cons. If you going into a huge cattle call, by the end of the day, you know if you got the job or if you have been shortlisted or whatever. Whereas if auditions are done in stages, then they'll say, cool, you're shortlisted, but we're doing more auditions in December, so we can't tell you anything. So there's pros and cons. But yeah, so the way that the Fugard runs auditions, which as dance captain, I take the auditions because I take the dance part of the auditions. They are very quick. Usually, because you've got to get the whole creative team together. You've got to get the musical director, you've got to get the director, you've got to get the dance person, and you've got to get a pianist and blah, blah, blah. So you've got to get this whole team together, and everyone's got crazy schedules. So it may be like, look, I'm only available from so-and-so to so-and-so time. So usually auditions are super quick for the Fugard. It'll go boom, 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 and they'll say, here's some curry. Okay, let's cross over to another studio to hear a song. Okay, cool. Are you cut? No, you're not cut. Here's some sides. Can you learn these either for tomorrow or for later on today? We do a reading, and here's a song to learn for tomorrow or whatever. Very quick. And I think, I prefer that. It's completely different.
It's more compartmentalized then as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I think every production company has their own way of auditioning.
Yeah.
But if you're going to be auditioning for a musical, and
it's gonna be a long journey.
and you've got to be ready. You've got to pack snacks. You got to have lots of water. You've got to be ready with them dance clothes because you never know what you're starting with. And everybody. And you get trained in musical theatre. If you're trained in musical theatre, you get trained how to audition. So you have to research the production that you're obviously auditioning for, and then you have to give, because they'll say, please come prepared with, say, a monologue, and they'll usually say like a comedic monologue in an American accent or whatever, depending on the production. And then they'll say, can you also bring a musical theatre ballad and a musical theatre comedic song? So if you're auditioning for The Sound of Music, you're not going to come with We Will Rock You. You know what I mean? So you have to come with and also maybe have an idea of like, oh, maybe I could have a chance at whatever character. Let's bring another song that would be appropriate and show that that's what I'm going for and what I can do. So and you come prepared with all those things, and then you move on to callbacks, and they give you material from their show to prepare and then come back with.
So what you were saying earlier, you like doing a lot of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you have anything planned now?
That is the worst question,
Why?
Alistair. You do not ask that.
Is that like
because
you do not
nobody
ask a lady
ever
her age sort of
knows.
question?
No one knows. Ask me what I'm doing next year. I have absolutely no idea. I'm
Well,
figuring it
do you have
out.
any ideas, maybe?
Always ideas. And there's always things that... So that's what's tricky about this industry is while you're working your bum off in something, you have to have something on the back boiler that you're busy planning for when this is done. So that's why, like, while I'm busy doing Kinky Boots and in the evenings I'm performing there and then rehearsing understudy calls or whatever in the afternoon, I then, in the mornings, I'm teaching Pilates, teaching dance, choreographing, doing whatever I can that can be something that will continue when Kinky Boots is done. So when Kinky Boots is done, I don't know, maybe doing a theatre collaborative piece that hopefully will continue, which is starting, but it's all hush hush and yeah.
Well, now you said it, now it has to happen.
Yeah, hopefully. But projects take time and investment and develop over a long time. And in musical theatre, you really can get a call at any time and say, remember that audition that you did 2 years ago? Well, we still have you on our books and someone's just fallen and broken their legs. Can you come in? Or something, you know? And
I mean, that's the nature of this industry.
Exactly.
It's all like last minute.
It is. It really is. But yeah, there are a lot of maybes for next year, and my personality doesn't really cope well with that.
Maybes.
I don't really like maybes. You know, I'm a very I'm the type of leader that wants to do everything, you know what I mean? Or I'm the type of person that wants to get everything done now because I can and I want to be in control. And with this industry, there's so much that you just can't be in control of, you know? You just have to wait for that callback, or you have to wait to hear, and that's hard, you know? So, you know, looming in the not so distant future is, will you pay rent? I don't know, because that's a maybe, you know what I mean? I'm just waiting to hear. So that's something that I don't know if I'll ever get used to it, but yeah, that's not an easy part of this industry.
So I have one final question, Lee.
Yeah, shoot.
Next week, we are doing a show
Spicy.
about spicy about various genres in South African film and theatre industry that
Cool.
perhaps have not been explored a lot. And I thought just to ask you, what do you think the South African industry is more motivated to create? So what we're going to talk about is like sci-fi films and maybe horror films, even like original South African musicals that you don't hear a lot of. Do you think the South African theatre landscape or film landscape is like motivated to make those sort of films? And that's
I was film is not my thing. So I had an agent until recently and realized that theatre's my thing. And me going to castings is just, I hate them so much, and it's just not me. And so I know very little about film.
Yeah.
So, but I was chatting to a friend of mine just yesterday or the day before, and she was talking about a musical that she wrote, and she wanted to make it into a film. And she approached one of the big producers, and he absolutely loved it. But he said it's got to be Afrikaans. It's got to be Afrikaans, and it has to have one of the big Afrikaans singers in it. Otherwise, it will. So this is what, like a 35 million. It was a very big idea.
Yeah.
He was like, it was a 35 million, and the average film in South Africa is what, like a 8 to 10 million, I think, apparently. Which is small fry, right? So if they wanted to do like a 35 mil, they were like, there's no way you're going to get funders if we're not 100% sure that it's going to sell. And we're only 100% sure that it's going to sell in South Africa as a musical if it's Afrikaans. Hence, those Afrikaans musicals that did super well and went to cinema. I can't remember the name of it now, but yeah, I can't remember. But it did well. So again, it comes down to funding. If you're an artist like me, I want to create. It's in me, and I need to. And so many people come to me, or I chat about these ideas. I'm like, oh, I want to create this and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, before, the ideas will come. That's not the issue. The issue is funding, and you should do that first. So there's so much in the musical theatre in the South African theatre and film space, where there's so much room to grow, and there's so much that hasn't been done, and we're so far behind in certain aspects of theatre and film, and there's so many artists in South Africa who have the best intentions and want to create
But it's
really
just
awesome
about
stuff. But it
about
really does
the
come
funding.
to it comes down to funding, unfortunately, and yeah.
Well, that's a sad note to end on.
I'm
But I
trying
mean,
to think. Yeah, I don't know.
it's food for thought, because then it means that there's this drive in South Africa to do different genres, to be creative, and it's just about getting people on board.
Yeah, I think also, you know, it has to become an international community, I think, and I mean, art and film overseas loves to you know, get pollination, like cross-pollination from around the world, and I think that's what we need to do as well. I know the film, I mean, look, film's not my thing, as I said, but I know in film the money is going towards the internationals where the South African workforce and actors are being used, but it's not creating South African content. And so yeah, somehow if we could make a shift there where the creatives are also South Africans and what's being written is South African as well. But I think that also there's like a lot of film stuff that's happening in Cape Town and South Africa that the general South African public just doesn't know about. And maybe there is a lot more that's actually being created that maybe we're not so sure about.
Well, we'll discuss more about this.
Yeah, get a film
next
person.
week. But thank you for your insights, and thank you for coming.
Yeah, been great to have
pleasure.
you.
Yeah.
Learned some wonderful things from you. So thank you so much for being here.
Sure.
And thank you, listeners, for tuning in to Centre Stage, the South African Film and Theatre Podcast.
See you next time.
Bye.
King Media Productions Centre Stage is a South African film and theatre podcast hosted by Alistair King and Daniels and Peter Bates, and produced with the generous assistance of Blended Podcasts, brought to you by Blended Audio.